Oh, welcome. Today we're going to do a project by Vera Collier called Boot Sweeping Boogie. Welcome to Zoom, and her canvas that she recommends is a 6x6 wood canvas. And I'll go through what we need for brushes. About a 1-inch wash, okay. A number 2 and number 4 rounds. I have something close to that. I don't always use exactly what's recommended, but I try to get something close. And then an angle shader, which looks something like that. That is a 3/4 inch. A number 10 aught is a nice fine, I guess you can see that. It's a pretty fine liner. And the last thing is a 3/8 crescent, which I'm not sure how she's going to use that, so we'll see when we get to that. The other supplies are a stylus, and if you don't have one, which I do have several but not handy, you can use an old pen, or here it is. And you can use anything to put pressure on your tracing paper to copy your drawing. Okay. The other thing she recommends is palette paper, and you can use any kind of waxed paper or something just to keep your paints moist. Paper towels, they're good, for an emergency if you have a spill or a blop that gets in the wrong place. And she's saying we need plastic wrap, and that's going to be part of the technique today that she uses on the background. And the other 2 items are all-purpose sealer and a satin varnish. Those will come later. Well, sealer you will need in the beginning. If you decide to go with just a rough piece of lumber, which you could do. Once you've sanded it and get it all ready so that it's smooth to the touch, you put an all-purpose sealer, and you can combine that with your first coat of paint. Put half sealer and half paint, and it will work out just fine. And then you'll probably need another coat of your base coat color, but you can use lots of surfaces. Today I'm going to be, rather than using the wood that she recommends, and you can always vary it and do something you like or need or want to use up. In my case, I'm going to put it on this little jar that I have hanging around, and I'll make it into a Halloween candy jar. Okay, I went through some of the supplies already, but I haven't mentioned the paints. The colors are going to be burnt sienna, golden straw, and you can also get something close to the color. I have golden straw, I have mustard. That's a lot darker, but they're yellows, a nice bright yellow. Lamp black, a neutral gray, which is kind of a medium gray shade. Olive green, which doesn't look as olive to me. It looks almost like a chartreuse, some kind of bright green, medium bright green. Orange flame that she recommends I do not have, so I have a bright orange, and that's what it's called, Deco Art Bright Orange. Next one is Pansy Lavender, which I also don't have, so I'm going to substitute some combination of and I'll probably use this wild orchid. Now there is a dark green called Plantation Pine. Purple Cow, which I'm going to use a lighter version of dioxazine purple, and royal purple, and finally warm white. Okay, if you haven't yet, get some tracing paper and trace the pattern to the size you want. Any kind of thin, even a tissue paper will work. And with a pencil usually, trace your pattern and just put that aside once you've got it traced, and then we'll work on the background. Okay, we're ready to do the background, and I poured some plantation pine, just about a nickel size amount of paint, and I took some water and I'm making it the consistency of ink. Okay, and then we're just going to, as quickly as we can, with our biggest brush, go over a section at a time and put on that inky paint. And this is why, on a smaller piece, you'd be finished by now if this were 6 by 6. Oh, you can't see. I'm not under the camera. Sorry about that. Okay. And just doesn't matter. You don't have to take great pains getting it on there. Just get some paint on there. And you have your plastic wrap ready. And crumple that up into just a wad. And now we're just going to do this. Let's see. Is that showing up? Let's see. Okay. So it's making texture, and it's still pretty wet. As it dries, it will keep the texture a little better. And you can move paint around that way too. I'm going to just go ahead and work on another area. Make sure I have it under here better. See? Same thing. Just more of the same. Now, this particular thing that I'm working on has a coat of a beige paint on it already, so it's going to accept the paint. It's not going to accept it as well as wood because it's plastic, and it's going to repel it. But as you can see, it is giving a texture, and that's what you're going for. Okay, and we're going to let that dry. Okay, now if you've traced your pattern and your background, your modeled look is dry. See, on mine, this is how it looks, and it's going to look different depending on the surface. Mine was fairly dark, so rather than a gray, I went with a white tracing paper, and I don't know if you can see my tracing on here, but I can see it, and it's dark enough for me to see it. So attach your pattern with a piece of tape, masking tape, and just go over your pattern with the graphite paper underneath. Okay. And just take your time. It's supposed to be fun. So don't stress over it. It's only a witch. All right, and once we do that, then we're going to start base coating. So I've also pulled out my colors. Base coating is the underneath, the broad colors. So if you look, the witch's shoes are a purple color. She's got black and bright orange socks. We're only going to start with the orange right now. The black will come in later after we have that base coat on. We have olive for the stripe on the broom. The broom itself is straw. And we're going to use the neutral. I'm not sure what that's going to be for yet, but probably maybe some shading. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. Okay, so start by following your directions and base coating in. And I'll be here for live to give you instructions if you have questions on this part. Okay, let's see if I can get this in here. And the colors actually look a little different. This is a fairly bright orange. And I have a round brush and I'm just stroking in this color into the leg. And where my piece extends, and this is up to you. I'm gonna give her a little bit longer leg than in the pattern. I'll just go up probably one more stripe. That's because, I like following directions, but I like to look at my surface too and see what looks best there. So a bright orange with your largest round brush will do this. And it's okay if it's, see how it looks spotty? Because you're probably going to need 2 coats. My orange is fairly thin or transparent, so I'll probably need another coat once this one dries. But you can decide. And 2 thin coats are often easier to work with than 1 thick coat. Okay, and now what I'll do is start on another area while that first one is... And I think I'll start on her boots, which are a purple color. Any red and blue make purple, but to get something this light, you'd probably need red, blue, and white. So again, using the same brush and just following the outline of the boot, and I stroke it in. This covers a little better than the orange, but okay, take your time and work on this. And I'll even this off and be right back. Okay, right now I have 1 coat on everything. You can see the coverage is different. The orange is pretty transparent, thinner. The yellow I actually put on a little too thick, but it'll be fine. But if you do like I did and have some ridges, you can try to smooth those out. It's better to put on another coat than to have ridges that you have to deal with when you're painting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put on a second coat on everything so that it's fully covered. You shouldn't be able to see any background once you're at finishing this stage. So we use the golden straw or a yellow, medium purple, and a bright orange, and the neutral gray is the broomstick. And oh yeah, we are going to use a bright orange, bright green rather, across on for the trim. Okay, now it's time to take a look. If you've got fairly good coverage like this with a couple of coats, take your tracing paper and put it back on. And if you're like me and you made some mistakes, which you could probably see I made her legs too fat. I wasn't paying attention to the lines. So we need to always know how to correct our mistakes, or, at least give it a shot, because it's supposed to be fun. Don't stress, just find a way to fix it or turn it into something else. So I'm going to go and take the background color, which was the plantation pine, or the green color, and I'm going to make her legs thinner again and just get rid of some of the excess paint I've got there, and get it ready to go. And then pull out your shading, because this part is like a coloring book. You just trace it on and you color in the lines. The next is the beginning of the first technique, other than the modeling or the saran wrap technique for background that we learned. This is the next technique, which is shading, and that's something that's really useful and really important in any art project you do. Okay, we're back, and we have you have your tracing attached to your piece, and use your graphite paper again, put it under, and trace on all the detail, which would be the stripes, the laces in the shoes, and the lines in the broom. Okay, anything that you left out on the inside, you traced now with your light graphite paper. And right on the screen, I'll show you why. What we're going to work on next is shading and highlighting. I'm going to read Vera Collier's directions, because they're excellent at this point. She says, before we paint the stripes on the legs, let's shade them. The shading will help give the legs their rounded shape. If you're painting this on your own, search for how to side load paintbrush on YouTube for a good video demonstration on this. So we're going to use a dampened 3/4 inch angular brush, and I'll touch a puddle of burnt sienna to the toe of the brush, which is the pointy end. And pulling up a little paint on your palette, the paint will extend about halfway across the brush, leaving the heel with clean water. Well, so I'm going to try to demonstrate that. And I guess, let's see. Here's my burnt sienna. And this is an angled brush. I'm going to dip it in the paint and go back and forth to spread it onto the brush, and see what it does. It makes kind of a gradient with your paint so that it gets from darker to lighter. And that's something you've really got to practice a bit. So on your paper, just try that. Okay, this is what we're going to use to shade or darken, make that rounded outside of her legs. Okay, now I have the shading and highlight chart up here again. I want you to take a close look at that. Anywhere where it's an X is for shading, and we're going to use the burnt sienna for that on the legs. And in the middle, there are little circles, and they go all the way down. That's going to be dry brushing for highlight. So the two terms, shading and highlight. Shading is to create the dark of the roundness, and highlight is to reflect the light that's hitting the object. So the center is going to be highlighted, and the outside of her leg is going to be shaded. So we're going to start with the burnt sienna, and the technique that I showed you a little bit. We're going to tip your brush into, let's see, I got to move it forward here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, you have the burnt sienna, and I'm tipping my brush into that, and I'm just going to go back and forth and stroke it like I asked you to practice it before. Just practice that again. And now when you're ready and you're comfortable, and let's try it on the legs. Okay, so we're going to go all the way down the outside of the leg with that burnt sienna. I have to come in closer. Maybe that's better. And there's water on one half of your brush, so the paint is only on the outside toward the outside of her leg. I have to go back over this. Hopefully you won't have to, but it's nice when you can get it in one shot. It works easier that way, but it doesn't always happen. My paint was a little dry. Okay, let's see. This is an awkward position to paint in, so you're gonna yep. I'm trying to get it up in there. All right, you can see that. That one's a good one. I've got a couple of, whoops, here we go. This one on the outside here is really too dark, so I didn't blend it well enough on my brush. You can go back, while it's still wet and try to take care of that. Put the water side to it and blend it some more. I don't know if I can get it in to show you, but I can work that out a little better, so I'm a little happier with it. Okay, and then after we get those shaded, what we're going to do next is on the pattern, which I hope you've put on. I think I mentioned that we want to put your pattern back on with graphite. So you see the inside lines. Every other line you're going to paint on her legs with black. All right, it's starting to take shape, okay, but keep it, don't stress over these stripes. Find a brush that looks like it's gonna fit and just do one pass, and keep it angled a little bit, arced, like you're going around her leg, and just imagine it that way. I've got an extra stripe because I made her legs longer than yours, but, and then, okay, after that, and let everything take time to dry. I don't know if you've come across this yet, but if you try to go over a wet paint, you'll dig a hole, and you create a lot of work for yourself trying to patch the hole. So it's best just to take your time, let things dry, and just enjoy it. Okay, what I want to talk about next on that chart is the highlighting. Okay, we're going to go up the center of the legs with where the circles are on the chart with what she asks for a crescent brush. So if any of you have ever stenciled, that will help you with this technique, because dry brushing is using very little paint. We're going to use white paint and very little on the brush. So we'll dip it in and then we'll take it off, and either on a paper towel or on your hand, and remove as much paint as you can till it's really dry, because you don't want to dig off some of your stripes. So that's what we're going to do next. Take your time, get your stripes in, get your black in, and we'll be back to do those. Okay, and if you have out some warm white and a brush that's like even a stencil brush or something that's fairly stiff, and you want to start getting either paper towel and get rid of as much of it as you can. You can check it if it comes, see, it just barely shows up on my hand. Okay, we're going to go down the center of the legs with a just brushing it down. Oops, there we go. My black wasn't dry, so I'll have to fix that. But I'll be back when I fix it. Okay, I have a medium purple, and I'm again practicing with my angle shading brush. So where we're going to go on the boots are on the both sides of the boot. Let's see, here we go. I think you can see that again now. So we're going to go down from the laces down to where it turns, and from alongside the broom on both ends, and then at the bottoms. Okay, so dip into your paint and go along the outside edge. Okay, the paint's kind of dry, so it's so next to the brim on both ends. If you can do it in one pass, it's better, but it doesn't always happen. And then alongside the laces, yep, starting just above the bow and down. A finger's always a good handy tool to have if you make a mistake. Take the paint off while it's wet. It's much easier than if you let it dry on there. Okay, so both inside from the laces, and then at the bottom edge, just where the shoe would touch the ground, basically. Let me see if I can get that in a good position. Okay. I have no paint. If you have too much paint or too much water, you can blot, because I'm running into a combination of too much and too little. A paper towel comes in handy to blot off too much water, and trying to get your stroke even on the brush helps to avoid too much paint like that one. go back and try to correct it. Get it so that you like it. And I think we have to put a little down the heel, okay, and that's the outside of the heel. The side closer to the boot rather than the side closer to the broom. I did both. Okay. All right, then we're going to get ready to highlight some of that. So, all right, we're going to take our highlighting brush and our white paint again. A crescent brush. Okay. Remember, the important thing is getting it as dry as possible. Okay. And let's take a look at our chart again. Generally, and that's what it is this time, it's right down the center. Let's see. Where in the center of the boot, and it goes around the curve. Just slightly around the curve. Okay. And let's see, we also want to go around the top of the boot with the highlight. And I think there's one other place. Yes, on the point. And that's kind of the outside of this point here. That's a little heavy. So just go ahead and you can take a paper towel or damp paper towel and remove some of that. And you just want that to show up a little more. It looks a little funky, but yeah, that's what witches' boots are about. If you get a little too much paint on there, see what I mean? I want to dull that down a little bit. I mean, you can always start over and just put the base coat back, or you can try to correct it if you still see if you've got time to correct it while it's still wet. Okay. All right, we're getting to close to the end here. Okay, with your black, try to get an inky consistency again. So add a lot of water. Take your liner, your small brush, your liner brush, and we're going to paint her laces. Okay, so those go in a zigzag pattern. And go from, just paint the laces as best you can. Light touch. I'm getting directed to get on camera. Thank you. And make little V shapes. And I guess we might as well go ahead and paint the lace also. Make a bow. Okay, now the next thing is going to be fun. The easiest thing you're going to do all day. Take some gold paint and we're going to do the buttons on her shoes. And with this one, we don't even have to use a brush. Okay. If you have a stylus or something like even an old tip of a pencil, practice. Look at the nice dots you can form by using, let's see, I'm gonna come back here. Try doing dots with the end of a stylus, and they're not showing up maybe that well on camera, but just practice that. And then go ahead to your boot and put the buttons on. 1, 2. Usually you have to reload. It's probably best to reload every time. And they'll be a little more consistent. Oh, look at what I did. I'm going to give her more buttons because I couldn't see what I was doing, and so she has buttons on the inside and the outside now. And I might as well give her a button on the bow. Another button on that bow. Ta-da! Let's see. So, oops, okay. We've only got a few things left. We've got to work on the broom, put a stripe on the broom, and we're almost there. Okay, if you've got those buttons in, we're ready to work on the broom. And what we're going to do is, with burnt sienna and our angle brush, we're going to put shading on each side of these big tufts of the broom, so that we're going to get these middle sections to recede, to lay in back. So they're going to be a little darker. And so we'll shade in there, across the top, under the and on the bottom side of the band. And with a thinned out burnt sienna, we're going to add some more detail lines here and there, just like you look at your picture, and add a few strokes with very thinned out burnt sienna, and add some of these lines at the top and in here and there on the broom, so that it looks like bristles. Okay, and the final step is going to be the green band, and all we have to do there is shade each side with plantation pine, so next to the boot, and add a few detail lines with the thinned plantation pine, which is our dark background color. So add a few lines across there, make it look like stitching across that band. Okay, and then for the rest of the broom, we have to put some highlighting. Okay, and we're going to highlight the center of the band, and on the broom, right down the center of the broom, we're going to highlight it with warm white, so down the handle here. And I'm going to check that and see what else we need to do. That could be it. Okay, so I have done some more shading inside those with the burnt sienna. I put some thinned, like watery lines in the brush, and at the broom at the bottom and at the top. Put a highlight line, and I went all the way down from the top of the broom with dry brushing. Okay, I don't like that quite as white right there at the bottom, but I can correct that by dry brushing a little bit of my base color, which was the yellow. And I often go back and correct things that I'm not that wild about. Okay, and the last thing, the very final step, is to shade underneath the boots and the bottom with plantation pine. The shading underneath grounds your what you're painting or whatever, so the boots need to stand on the ground and the broom stands on the ground. So we're going to shade underneath them with the plantation pine, and I'll use the big brush. Well, we've been using that angle brush quite a bit. And in your drawing, the shading, the X's go all the way under the broom. So we're gonna start, let's see, am I on camera? Yeah, okay, we're gonna go under the broom and kind of, you know, in and out there a little bit. Oops, I'm out of paint. Go in and out and shade with that color and continue it on a little bit. Okay, take it off if you get it on the broom. Okay, and then one more place, I believe, and that is under the shoes. So we're going to start at the broom and go right underneath. I didn't. There. Okay, and same on this side. Okay, go across to the broom. All right, and that is it. Well, we have to add a little detail on the band, which I already did with some thin inky plantation pine. And all you have to do to finish this is sign your name somewhere, usually you know, maybe over here on this side of the broom, where, like, right in here. Sign your name on either side, up to you, and sign however you want to sign your name. And then you're going to put some clear matte varnish on it to protect your painting. And usually 2 or 3 coats is good. All right, and hope you can enjoy it for years to come. Happy Halloween.